Welcome to this Flight Simulator update movie. A few days ago, the first version of the Aircraft and Avionics update number 2 has been released into beta. As you can see, there's a specific section in the forum which you can look at for the release notes. So it will bring up the version of Flight Simulator to version 1.33.3.0. So that's really cool, right? So what's included, right? So first of all, they of course make you aware about the community folder, right? You need to make sure that it's empty if you are affected by some of the issues like crash, etc. before, I would say, raising a case with Asobo. Then the next thing is that they have added, I would say, a kind of additional logging, which collects some more telemetry about the offline and low bandwidth issue, right? The offline and low bandwidth issue, that's what several people, I would say, have been facing, me included. While my bandwidth is really not an issue and my internet connection is also not really an issue. And they enabled some more telemetry to understand what's causing it, right? That's also what they discussed during the developer, let's say, what was it, webcast. So that's really cool. So what has been included in Aircraft and Avionics update number 2? The first beta, because in some cases this is not the full list which will be eventually added to the update. In most cases it will be a little bit more. So first of all, for the Garmin G3000 and G5000. First 2 bugs, right? One is they fixed the bug where they're removing the traffic and relative terrain indicators from the navigation map would leave behind an empty but visible container, right? So that's when you remove certain items, it showed, so I would say, kind of a marker on the map. They fixed also a bug where the tools touchdown callouts were not using the nearest runway elevation. Well, that was also something which you might have faced. And they fixed a small inaccuracy in the lateral deviation scale above the PFD HSI map, right? So there was a small scale issue in the PFD, and then in the PFD you can enable that HSI map where a small issue was there. Then the autopilot / flight director heading mode now only reverses turn direction if the selected heading is turned past the 330 degrees away from the airplane's current heading, right? So that's a change in how the autopilot and flight director react to the heading mode. Continuing with the next one, the Garmin GNS 430W and 530W. There's only one small fix in that one. It's the page navigation issue where the right knob push would not close the dialogues, right? So once you open the dialogues, you were between records kind of screwed because you couldn't close them. Then the Whiskey Tango 21. There was the PFD. They fixed an issue where the wind indicator would spin to the wrong direction, as well as they fixed an issue with the FMS where the edge case were instinct waypoint at end of flight plan. In addition to that, they fixed another FMS issue where the default hold inbound course to match the previous leg outbound course. Also makes sense. Going to the aircrafts themselves. As already discussed during the developer webcast, right, they're now focusing on some other aircraft types. So in this case, they focus mainly on the Boeing 787-10 and the Boeing 747-8 India. So first of all, they did a complete, I would say, revamp of the avionics, which means a visual overhaul for the aircraft font, symbology, look, operation and feel, right? So they made the cockpit a little bit more realistic. Then they also visually accurate PFD supporting rising runway indication, ILS symbology, FPV and much more. So a huge update for the PFD. The independent MFD, ND and CDU screens supporting view pane system management. So view pane system management has been added to the different displays. As well as they added CDU supporting advanced flight plan management and performance initialization features, right? So that's where, I'd say, several things have already been added. In addition to that, they have the advanced flight planning, including arcs, radius to fix, intercepts, hold, procedure turns, and missed approaches, which wasn't possible with the existing version. As well as the alternate divisions with customizable profiles for the predictions of the ETA distance and fuel remaining to multiple airports. Next one is the integrated checklist on the MFD, right? We saw this with some other aircraft where they now have included the checklist in a display instead of, I would say, opening it from the top menu, right? You can also show it now on the MFD, which is cool. And the full synoptics pages indicating status of their respective systems. So that will give you some more information about the respective systems which you're on. They reworked the ICAS supporting full engine indication display and a whole suite of CAS messages, right? So those CAS messages are informing you, for example, hey, gears down, or hey, there's an issue with something. That's where the CAS messages are for. And the performance-based VNAV with idle descent capabilities considering aircraft state temperature and wind forecast. So that's cool. Then another fix for the VNAV, and then specifically for the VNAV configuration with econ selected modes, configuration of speed restrictions and speed transitions. So those are, I would say, the indications which you have, right? In some cases you have a speed restriction which is applicable in a certain area, and those speed transitions are when you're transitioning from, let's say, above 18,000 and then go below it, then it will transition to a lower speed. Then they fully featured auto throttle system with correct AT mode functionality and communication to and from the FMS, really cool. And the thrust management system supporting cost indexed, thrust limitation and assumed temperature derate. Long list, as you can see, because we're not there yet. The integrated approach navigation functionality and indications for straight-in precision approaches, as well as the RMP and AMP indications, right? That was missing but has now been added. As well as the TCAS System 2, supporting traffic advisories and RA indications on the ANDI, right, on the display. That was not there, so you wouldn't receive any traffic advisories, but that's now being added. They revised the engine and the flight model. Bring many values closer to the book, right? So it makes it more realistic, and that was also explained during the video, right? In some cases they can't make it even more realistic because there's a dependency on getting the approval from the, let's say, vendor of the aircraft, in this case Boeing. Then the fuel system overall supporting proper pump operation on the APU start and support for hydraulic demand pumps, right? So they fixed some systems which did not work 100% correctly, but now it looks like that they, I would say, added at least the support for that, so that's cool. Then the electric system with the correct bus connection logic and adjusted power consumption, because the power consumption was not adjusted, but they fixed that. And they have added the functional GPS and IRS navigation systems. More functionality to the overhead panels with accurate indications of the electrics, hydraulics, fuel and ECS panels, right? That was what you saw in the aircraft. I would say it worked, but there were a lot of things missing, but it looks like that they now spend some more time also on the overhead panels to make them more realistic. As well as they added the overhead panels logic and lightning correctly, right? Lightning was also not always correct. Then a few fixes for the 787 specifically. The revision of the plane soundscape, the overhauled HUD supporting nearly all real-world symbology, including both full and declouded models, right? Declouded, they simply mean, okay, hey, it's, I would say, expanded, right? If you select something, as well as the runway edge lines, FPV, acceleration and speed error indications, touch and go, glide scope references, and unusual attitudes. That's in the HUD, right? That's the thing which you can, let's say, pull down, which shows you some more information. And then they've got the new fly-by-wire system simulating the CU law with trim speed unique to the Boeing aircraft. There are still some known limitations. One of them is the environmental control system. That's work in progress, and the synoptics for those are disabled for right now. So it will be enabled, but it's disabled for now. And the electronic flight black for performance calculations is not yet available, right? Which means that you need to use the calculations happening on the CDU on one of the displays. Then for the 747 specifically, the pedestal CDU third mirrors the left CDU for performance reasons, and the electrical transfer buses powering over other main buses, as well as the fuel system overhaul in progress, synoptics is disabled. So it looks like that there are some known limitations currently, but based on some of the comments, it looks like that they will plan to add it in the near future. Maybe later in, I would say, in another auto update, or maybe even in this auto update, or aircraft and avionics update, sorry. Then we've got the Cessna Citation Longitude. They fixed the thrust reverser animations so that the buckets are only shown as deployed when the reverse thrust is actually engaged. That was an issue, right? Whether it looked graphically, it looked completely incorrect, but they now fixed it. And they added the mitigation to prevent the engine and the APU graphics on the fuel hydraulics ECS and the anti-synoptic panes from rendering incorrectly. That was, I'd say, it's hard to see, but in some cases the graphics were not rendered correctly in this specific aircraft. Then the rudder can now be powered by both the A and B hydraulic systems and no longer requires the left engine to be running. This is one of those things which makes it more realistic. And the bearing point information is no longer missing when the PFD is in split mode. So that was missing when you put the PFD in split mode, the bearing point information was no longer there. Then they fixed the improper placement of the nav DME information banner when the PFD was in split mode. So again, split mode issue. And they fixed a bug where the bearer pointer number 2 information was displayed in an incorrect location when bearer point number 1 was switched off. Also a nice one. They changed the selected airspeed while auto throttle is on. No longer cause the auto throttle to command sudden changes in throttle leveler positions. And they added support for the dual Q flight director format. And the last one for this one is the PFD roll indicator no longer renders the roll skill. So a lot of fixes specifically to the nav system, but also to the split mode where you can see some things. They also managed to fix some of the, I would say, systems which were working incorrectly. Then the next aircraft which received an update, the TBM 930, the minimums alerter now works correctly when using radio minimums. So a lot of nice things which are part of this. Second, Aircraft and Avionics update number 2. It's currently still in beta phase, right? Which means that you need to use the Xbox Insider tool to join the beta program. And after that, likely reinstall your machine. And then once you start Flight Simulator, it will prompt you to download the latest update. And then you will get all the nice stuff. Keep in mind, especially since there is a Boeing 787 item fixes, that if you installed any, I would say, community add-on, which is, I would say, pimping the Boeing 787-10 cockpit or the Boeing 747-8i cockpit, that you might want to remove it initially to make sure that you're testing it, I would say, correctly, I would say. Here ends this video where we went to all the release notes of the Aircraft and Avionics update number 2. Keep an eye on my channel because I will likely post some specific videos about some functionalities which are discussed here. Hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.